I joined BHL, which is a public sector. It was in the power sector, one of the leading companies. And that's one of the reasons I quit BHL and I started my own company at a very young age. Earlier, it used to take 21 days for an aerogram from India to reach US and from US to reach India. So the Time magazine wrote about Calcutta online when we did Durga Puja online. That's when I realized that the world is changing very fast and we've got young entrepreneurs who are bubbling with ideas. Spirituality helps you to look at things beyond the material world.
Hello from Bangalore, India. I'm your host, Pamela, and you're tuned into Transition Story. Join us as we listen into inspiring tales from our guests, glean valuable learnings, and take action to apply them to our daily lives. Hari brings a wealth of experience to the table, has been involved in multiple entrepreneurial ventures since 1987. He's a dedicated advisor supporting startups through angel investments, mentorship, and strategic guidance. As a champion of lean startup principles and global thinking, Hari has helped countless founders navigate the complex landscape of entrepreneurship. With a strong track record of successful investments and exits, Hari has played a pivotal role in shaping the Indian startup ecosystem. He's actively involved in various investment committees and advisory boards, including those at IvyCap Ventures and Calcutta Innovation Park. If you are a startup founder, investor, or an aspiring entrepreneur, don't miss this episode. We're diving deep into the world of entrepreneurship with Hari, a seasoned investor and a mentor. Get ready to get inspired as Hari shares his journey, investment strategies, and insights on building and shaping the Indian startup ecosystem. It's a conversation that you don't want to miss. Hi Hari, good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening. How are you, Pamela?
I am doing good. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. So the very first thing, Hari, I'm very curious to learn. What inspired you to trade the comfort of a corporate career at BHEL for the challenges and rewards of entrepreneurship?
This is going a long way back, So as a young person, I always wanted to create an impact. So I joined BHL, which is a public sector. It was in the power sector, one of the leading companies. And in 1 year's time, I realized that it's going to take me at least 25 years to get to a position where I can create impact. And that's the time when PCs started coming to India, the personal computer. Yeah. So I saw a lot of power in the personal computer to actually automate a lot of personal work as well as, corporate work. Yeah. So in BHEL, we had EDP managers who used to buy mini computers, mainframes. It was like almost like a very protected place where some people would be able to enter. It was like very tough for normal people to understand how a computer works. Whereas the PC came and changed that game. So I saw an opportunity in that space that, a personal computer can straight away be used by companies and it can do much better and much easier than a mini computer or a mainframe would do to solve normal problems. And that's one of the reasons I quit BHEL and I started my own company at a very young age.
And remind our listeners, which year was this?
This was 84 I graduated. So 84 to 86 almost I was in BHEL. So in 86, 87 I started my company.
Wow. So that early. So India was very new to technology, I believe.
Yes.
And I'm sure your journey was not easy. But tell us a little more about how did that entrepreneurship start and how did you make it happen? Because in those days, I think doing business was not so easy as it is today.
See, it's, when you're young and you don't have any sort of responsibilities, that's the time when you typically take risks, right? So for me, it was like a exciting journey. You could be your own boss. You could do what you want to do. You could create impact. But we didn't know how a business would actually move forward those days. It was just out of sheer passion to do something useful that I jumped from a job to being an entrepreneur. Almost last 35 years, I've only paid salaries. I've never received salaries. So that's one of the prime differences between an entrepreneur and somebody who takes up a job.
Absolutely. But back in those days, angel investing was like trying to catch lightning in a bottle. So once you wrapped up your company, what gave you the guts to take a leap of faith and bet on these young founders that you have been interacting with for so many years and their wild ideas?
See, actually, in the year 1996 or 97, when internet first came to India, I was very, very excited because I could see the power of the internet. So that's when I did my first portal, which was called Calcutta Online. It was a Calcutta-based portal which would do everything in Calcutta, which means it would publish news, It would deliver gifts to people. You can do online shopping, everything which is purely Calcutta based. So this portal became very popular, especially with Bengalis worldwide. And one of the most useful services that I started in Calcutta Online was email. Earlier it used to take 21 days for an aerogram from India to reach US and from US to reach India. So the communication between a parent and a child, or a parent and their children, would almost take 21 days, and phone calls were very expensive those days.
Yes.
So what I did was I saw an opportunity there. So I would ask people in the US to send emails. And those emails, I would print it in our office and somebody would go and deliver it to their parents. So what happened was 21 days got cut short to a few hours. And then the parents would say, can you please wait? I will write a response to this, right? So that's how, the response from 21 plus 21, 42 days became almost like same day. So that was one of the most unique things which everybody appreciated, and communication became much faster. So I became very popular. The portal became very popular with a lot of Bengalis worldwide. So I used to get university professors who would come to my office and say, we wanted to understand, how a third world country is using the internet and leveraging it and things like that. So I was very raw at that time. I didn't have any guidance. This was a totally new field. That's when a company from, USA, which was a listed company in NASDAQ, this company had approached me. They had heard about me. Guess what? Calcutta Online is the first website to be featured in the Time magazine. So the Time magazine wrote about Calcutta Online when we did Durga Puja online, which means we were able to show the most popular Durga Pujas in Calcutta live during those days. During those days, internet was not like what it is today. And technology, in terms of cameras and other things were also very primitive. But I was one of the first persons to, get a digital camera in those days. And we used to shoot and we used to upload images of pandas and murtis and all these things. And this became a super hit in the sense people all over the world started looking at what was happening near their locality, what is happening. So that was, again, something which was very innovative, which was done in those days. And then Bengali associations worldwide would contact me and say, can we also do our puja, there so that other people can look at it. So it was a way of bringing people together. And it was very interesting and very exciting, and it created a lot of joy for many people because they were able to connect with their roots, though they had a lot of difficulties in, let's say, coming to India very frequently. So that was an experience. So this company from USA, they approached me and said that, hey, you're doing a great job. We want to take it very big. We'll take it all over India. We'll do this, that, and other things. So I agreed. I thought that, yes, I had limited resources, limited bandwidth. This company was a listed company. So they acquired Calcutta Online in those days. So, and then I did the transition. I helped all the team members to move to that other organization. And then again, I was free. But I always used to run an IT company. This was one of my projects. So for the question that you asked, so after Calcutta Online was acquired, I went to the Silicon Valley because I had a lot of people who had come from Silicon Valley also. I went to Silicon Valley, spent some time there, understood how the ecosystem works, understood the challenges of entrepreneurship, challenges of innovation, challenges of funding young companies. And I was very inspired by what Indian entrepreneurs in the Silicon Valley had done. So they all came to a foreign country and many of them built businesses which were like $1 billion in those days. And they had realized that, a support system is required for entrepreneurs. And that is one of the main reasons why I was inspired to come and give back to the ecosystem because, we never had that ecosystem in India those days. And TIE was one of the, nodal organizations. TIE started in Silicon Valley, was founded by a lot of Indians and Asians who wanted to support the startup ecosystem. And I was very inspired by what they did and learned a lot from there. Came back to India and decided that, we also should do something like this. Calcutta was a very laid back city. It was under the communist government at that time. Even if a bank would like to computerize, there would be hartals and bunds and things like that. So Calcutta was a very tough terrain to actually computerize, but I still moved forward and I was able to do quite a lot of work, especially in terms of bringing the internet for people and also supporting the entrepreneurial ecosystem. That's when I realized that the world is changing very fast and we've got young entrepreneurs who are bubbling with ideas and we don't want them to make the same mistakes that, let's say I made or somebody else made. So that's when I realized that it's good for me to actually help entrepreneurs realize their dream and support them so that they don't make the same mistakes that we have made. They make newer mistakes and learn from that. So that was one of the reasons why I got inspired to be a mentor and an investor in the startup ecosystem. And that's how the journey started.
Yes, I can totally relate to this, Hari, because back in 2011, when I started my own company, I learned that raising capital was a very difficult thing, especially if you have a very nascent idea, and there was no guidance available because, as you rightly said, some of these ecosystems were developing in pockets. So I was based out of Bangalore, and I did not have access to or have the knowledge, right knowledge, to really get into entrepreneurship in a very structured way. And I was just going through some of your content, and I came across this angel score, which is like a game changer. If I had access to it when I was actually trying to launch my startup, I would have validated my ideas against a lot of these questions that you have. So tell us a little more about what is angel score about? How did you come up with that idea? I know you have a plethora of experience. You did it again and again. It was rinse and repeat. But what makes it so unique, and how did you come up with it and make it so rock solid?
It's again something which is very practical. So what happens is I sit in various business plan evaluation competitions or business plan evaluation for many institutions and organizations. So let's say we are looking at 10 startups, right? So when we look at 10 startups and we have to select the best 3 or best 4, either for incubation or for a shortlist, what happens is, there are 2, 3 people who are evaluating it. Even if I am evaluating it, am I doing the right thing? Am I measuring all of them in the right way? Right. So, though the scale may be wrong, but relatively it would be correct, which means if I am looking at each of these companies in multiple parameters and I use that to score very quickly. Otherwise, what happens is you tend to get, when somebody is presenting for 5 minutes, your attention is not fully there. Sometimes it goes right. So this becomes a very structured way of measuring very quickly what is a startup doing and where do they stand on their own. And when we compare it on a same scale with others, we are able to understand who has got a better value proposition, who has got a better score. So the angel score came out of that. A lot of people were very impressed. In fact, I remember using it in Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, when we were evaluating startups for incubation. The director of the institute said, "Oh, this is lovely. There were other people who use their own scoring sheet, but I use this technique," right? So she said that, "Oh, this is great." And this is very scientific. So I just did it so that I don't make mistakes. I have a method to the madness. And that's when I realized that this could be used as a method for startups to understand where they stand today and then also improve the areas where they do not score well. So most founders, when they take their score, they score very high. So when they come and say that I've scored very high, where is my funding? I said, you have already scored very high. So automatically people will be backing you. Right? So don't ask for funding with such a high score because you will automatically get it. Okay. But generally what happens is founders tend to be very over optimistic, which they should be. But I always half the score which founders do on a self-assessment, when they do a self-service. But it's good to actually get it evaluated from other people to understand where you stand.
Founders are practically lining up to get a piece of your wisdom. Even though you are consciously stepping away from the investing game, they can't seem to let go of you. That's what I learned from your network.
See, I love what I'm doing. I understand the challenges of a startup founder's journey. And I have seen this journey very closely with number of companies. And I'm very deeply involved with the companies that I fund or lead investments in. So what happens is I become like a joker in a pack of cards, right? So I can fit into any place where the startup is having a gap. So I work like that. And when I see success or when I see progress from a startup side, it gives me a lot of joy. So I love what I do. And because I love what I do, I don't solicit business. So the founder network in it itself, people would say, go to him, he'll give you the right guidance. It's primarily because I don't charge anything for my services also. So automatically the pipeline gets built. And if you have to do justice, you have to spend time. If I can't do justice, I would say, I can't spend time right now. So please wait till I get time or go to somebody else.
Okay. And if I am not wrong, if I may say so, that you have some specific inclination towards verticals when you fund these startups, or it is like you fund anybody who comes to you based on the strength of the idea, or it's only food businesses or it's only retail businesses? You have any vertical inclination?
Actually, if you look at a startup's journey, right, the startup has to be at the right place at the right time. And they need to be continuously innovative and they should understand, listen to the customers, right? So it's very important. And also there should be in a domain which is fundable. So investors are, again, people who mostly do not understand many things. So in fact, I always say that I don't understand your business. But what happens is we have a position. We think that, okay, this particular sector, there's going to be interest. This particular sector, the exits are going to be possible. Because if you actually see what the investor's job is, they normally take money from others, deploy it in companies, and they get a return, and this return is given back to the investors. But as an angel investor, we write our own checks. So we don't have to answer anybody. So generally, the institutional investors have a lot of responsibility because they are collecting money from others, and then they have to provide a return. So they have to go very deep into what they are doing, and they need to be understanding exactly that this domain will work, this domain has got a potential to give this type of return. Unfortunately, investors also make a lot of mistakes. So I would say that there are certain sectors which are sort of, it's like fashion. Today this one is hot, tomorrow that one is hot. So you need to keep up with the interest of other investors, other people in certain sectors. At the same time, you need to be very practical. You need to be able to understand whether a business can scale from 1 to 100, right? Because let's say somebody puts in 1 crore of rupees as an investor, he would expect a return of 20 to 30 crores. Right? Now, this 20 to 30 crores will not come to him until there's the core business, which is like, let's say at a valuation of 10 crores. It goes to at least 20 times of that. In order to get there, it requires the size of the market. It requires an international appeal. It requires, a very good cost structure so that the company which is producing whatever it's producing is at a very low cost and they have a competitive advantage. So all these factors are very important. But I like people who are very passionate about what they are pursuing. And in case I see that there is a potential in what they are doing, I would back them up, though the journey may change as they go forward. For example, somebody could start with one particular idea, but as they move forward, the idea itself gets changed primarily because they've gone to customers and they've done some validations and they think that this is not going to work, something else is going to work. So the job of an entrepreneur at the startup stage is to basically discover a business model which can be scaled. Now, if you can't discover the business model, either you are persistent in finding it or you switch and try something else, which is where you are going to discover a business model. So this journey is very important and one has to optimize this journey, get the right type of advice, bring the right type of teams and people in place and speak to the right people so that you can get to your journey faster in terms of your discovery. Absolutely. So it's about a passion. I like what I'm doing and that's the reason I continue to do what I do, but with my own limitations.
Yeah, absolutely. And those limitations, I'm aware of some of those. I'll take the liberty of calling some of it out. You have a spiritual inclination and I've learned that you often engage in silence retreats, go out on yoga breaks. We have discussed a lot about your entrepreneurial journey, your angel investor journey, but these periods of breaks, or if I may call it, like you completely disconnect, how do these periods transform you as a person? What does it do to you?
As a young entrepreneur, I always used to be a busy bee, right? I always used to do busy with so many things. At one point of time in my life, I asked myself, what is it that you're doing? You're doing so many things. I did not spend much time with my, kids when they were growing, right? Mm-hmm. So I always, once it dawned on me that, all these things are not important. The ultimate importance in life is to be happy and to spread happiness around you. And that's when I realized that whatever I'm doing is not good enough. So I need to first look inward before I look outward, right? So if I'm a happy, peaceful person, if I'm able to, let's say, give away a lot of things very silently, it helps the world, it helps my environment. So my first journey was to discover myself. And then whatever I discover, I use it in my day-to-day life and I continue doing that. I think all of us are born in this world, we come alone, right? Life is full of loneliness. So you need to become friendly with loneliness. So that's something which I've learned. So I'm very, very happy when I'm all alone. So I go on silent retreats where I don't know anybody. I don't have a phone. I don't do anything. And that gives me a lot of strength in terms of my mind becomes very strong and pure. And I'm able to look at things from a very different perspective and understand that everybody wants peace and peace results in happiness. And if you want to be peace, there are a few things which you have to give up. And giving up is one of the best things that one can do in this life in order to be happy.
Yes, no, I can relate to this because I'll tell you a small story. I was out for work in Geneva for a project. It was about a week and I did not have family with me. And I used to go to office, work for 8 hours. I used to meet some people and then I used to come back to the hotel and I had nobody to talk to. So it so happened there was a storm and then the office shut down for about 4 or 5 days. So I cannot step out of the hotel and I'm getting food delivered to my room and I'm alone in the room. So I realized the phone connectivity was not there. There was no internet. So for 4 or 5 days, I absolutely had no connection with the outside world, nor with my family back in India. And I realized in this 4 or 5 days, the amount of silence that I experienced and I was able to intrinsically look inside or spend time with that loneliness which you just called out. After 4 days, my productivity had really gone up, and I felt, okay, something this silence did. Of course, I was not very matured back in those days. This is about 12, 13 years back, and I didn't know what happened, but I suddenly became much more aware. I suddenly became much more stronger. I came back after that storm stronger, and I kept on reflecting on it. So after so many years, when I engaged in coaching, I realized, okay, that silence actually did something to you, so I should practice it again. So now when I similar breaks that I experience, go for a vipassana session or a silence retreat or a yoga break, it exactly does the same thing to me. So I completely agree with what you just said. But Hari, beyond the boardroom, you have cultivated a deep spiritual connection, right? You partially answered this, but I'll repeat this a little bit so that you can double click and tell us more. I'm curious. How does your spiritual practice, like spending time with yourself, looking inside, influence your approach to business and life? Of course, you become much more focused, but does it really change at how you look at things?
Yeah, it does change. We give too much of importance to certain things which are, which need not be that important. And because of those important things, you spoil your relationship with people, you get into arguments, your ego starts playing on you, right? Now, when you are looking at it or when spirituality dawns on you, then what happens is these things become secondary. So you just realize that nothing is permanent in this world, right? There's only one thing which is permanent is today you're alive, tomorrow you may not be. So what is the secret beyond this? What can be the greatest discovery of human being except for understanding what human life is all about or what life is all about? I don't think there is anything, which is much more intriguing and challenging than this. It's very mystical, right? So nothing else matters. So you can walk away from $1 billion deal without having any effect on you, right? At the same time, you can be very passionate about a particular thing where you want to give a child something or where you want to support an entrepreneur. So all these things do not matter. So spirituality helps you to look at things beyond the material world, and you can always walk away from anything where you feel that your ego is going to come in.
So, any incident, any story you want to share with us where you actually experienced it firsthand? Was there a trigger for you to switch to this kind of a spiritual connection?
I think, to tell you very honestly, a lot of things happen by chance. In my case, it happened by chance. It so happened that I realized that there is something beyond what we all normally do. And that beyond is what started becoming more interesting than the real world, where we live. So I am more interested in what is beyond life. And, that's the main trigger because of which I look at life very differently today than what I used to look at as an entrepreneur. And of course, I have not read the Bhagavad Gita, but I think the Bhagavad Gita, provides a lot of clarity in terms of what you should do in terms of your work and other things. But I personally feel that it's about enjoying yourself. It's about being happy. It's about being peaceful. So if you are peaceful and if you are happy, then you spread happiness around. And if you want to do that, then you need to give up quite a lot of things like, ego and greed and desire and all these things. So I try to give up as much as possible. So giving up is a great way of becoming, I would say, one with life.
Wow, that's a very profound statement. Now we'll switch back a little bit to alternate investments. So, Hari, very potent question that I get among my friends. People who have spent 20, 25 years in the industry have accumulated decent amount of wealth, and now they are exploring alternate investments to grow their money. So angel investing still remains a very popular choice, but not many people know how to do it. For those with substantial capital, what are the most important pragmatic and empirical approach to exploring this investment idea? What would be your 2, 3 pieces of suggestion as we wrap up this conversation?
See, angel investment is a very good asset class, especially for people who can wait for, let's say, 7 to 12 years for their investment to mature. It's like planting a seed and watering it on a regular basis. You don't need to water, somebody else could water it for you. What happens is, most important thing is, it is not something like a stock market investment where you sort of can exit anytime. It's a very, very liquid investment. So if you have an appetite to look at how your money can grow, let's say 20 times or 50 times or even 100 times, and you're willing to wait and take bets on a number of companies, then what happens is a few of them will give you this return. So it has to be a portfolio approach. If you invest in 10 companies, you can expect 2 of them to do well. One of them could do maybe very well, but 6 or 7 of them will either die or they would just not return anything to you. They'll just return your capital. Some of them would just be write-offs. It's very important to understand and follow the right type of people when you want to do these investments. If you follow the right people, then what happens is you don't have to do much effort. They do a lot of heavy lifting. You just write checks and you just keep tracking and following them. And you just see that at the end of 5 years or 6 years, you made a substantial return to your asset class, to the money that you have put in, along with holding some other assets in the form of shares in equity, which could go much bigger because some of these companies could go IPO and things like that. So if you enter at a valuation of, let's say, 10 crores and the IPO happens at 27,000 crores, you can understand the type of money that you would make.
No, that is phenomenal.
So that's the beauty of angel investments. I myself have experienced quite a number of such companies which have grown from nothing to a very substantial amount, and I've seen returns which are mammoth.
So what is the best way to approach these asset classes? Like we have to just go and follow people who are actively investing to see where they are investing. How do you get a seat on the table where companies trying to raise funds? Because most founders that I meet, they're raising funds from friends and family and friends of friends. But if somebody who has substantial capital but doesn't have access to these information, what is their go-to place to really start following these?
See, in India today, we have a large number of angel networks. So in order to qualify as an angel, as per SEBI, you need to have, I think, an annual income of 1 crore or something like that. And so they have set some criteria in terms of who can be an angel investor or who can be a qualified angel investor. Though it is prescribed, it is still fully not, what should I say, deployed and implemented, because the government also did not know about this asset class, and slowly they are coming up with certain guidelines. For example, for the private equity venture fund, the guidelines are pretty clear and the monitoring is also done very well. But for angel investments, it's still not that very, I would say, clean as it is for the private equity and venture capital funds. So as an individual who wants to become an angel investor, there are a number of ways by which you can do it. One is get into a network or speak to people who are angel investors, understand from them, what they should, how they can help you in terms of getting into a network. Once you get into a network, founders typically go to several angel networks and apply, saying that I have an idea, I need funding, right? And that's when the whole process starts. The other one is if you know good angel investors, you should just ask them to, help you participate in a few deals. And that's when you start getting, it's not very difficult. Only thing is, when you get deeper into a company, it depends on how much you want to engage and how much you can contribute. Because what happens is, many angel investors, many people, I won't call it them angel investors, many people think that once they get into a company, they can start telling the company what the company does or has to do. Whereas, what we typically need to do is we need to support the entrepreneur in realizing the dream. So if the entrepreneur is going wrong, you just tell him that, hey, I think you're going wrong. So, evaluate yourself properly, or, look at some dynamics or look at some data before you decide this is right or wrong. Okay. There are ways by which you can become a good angel investor, but it requires a lot of, I would say, commitment, understanding, at the same time, a lot of going into deep insights into the industry.
Yes, of course. It was lovely talking to you, Hari. The time that you gave us today is like a nugget of wisdom for many of the listeners. So I appreciate that, and thank you for sharing all your valuable learnings and insights. I'm sure we'll see you on the other side once I complete 100 episodes. I'd love to welcome you back, because this is more of an entrepreneurial journey for me after failing in my first attempt and trying to do something different this time. So let's see where it takes us. Thank you once again.
Thank you. All the best.